I'd like to call this special meeting of the Lammersville Unified Board of Education to order at 2 o'clock. If you would please silence or shut off your cell phones as this meeting is being recorded. And if everyone would rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Lisa Boulay.
Here.
Colin Clements.
Here.
Benita Daniel. Stephanie Olson.
Here.
David Pombo.
Here.
Sunita Jathendra.
Absent.
Approval and or corrections to the agenda.
There are none.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the agenda. Second.
On a motion by Trustee Olson, and I believe it was seconded by Trustee Boulay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? The agenda is approved. Item 4, receiving of public comments. The board shall give members of the public an opportunity to address the board either before or during the board's consideration on each item listed on the special governing board agenda. Individual speakers shall be allowed 3 minutes to address the board on each agenda item. The board shall limit total time for public input on each item to 20 minutes. I have no blue cards. Would anyone like to make a public comment at this time? Thank you. Moving on. Item 5, board workshop, curriculum and instruction programs. Staff report.
I'll introduce Assistant Superintendent Heather Sherburne to introduce her team in today's topics.
Good afternoon, President Pombo, trustees, Dr. Nicholas. Super pleased to be back here again today. Today's purpose is to take what we presented last night and shared with you in a quick overview, drenching through a fire hose, and break it down a little bit more, give you more details, give you a chance to ask some questions in between. So let me introduce the coordinators. Today we actually have Jenna joining us by Zoom. Last night she was on watching the live stream. So this is Jenna Cook. Jenna Cook is primarily responsible for working with our TK through second grade students and everything that evolves around that. Then we have Kristen Quinto over here. Kristen is primarily responsible for, she's looking at the science area, our GATE instruction, and our English learners, and how we do that. Then we have Katrina Bornkamp. Katrina Bornkamp is primarily responsible for math, working with middle school, working with high school. The Blended Learning Academy is a large part of what she runs in particular. Then we have Theresa Bodenmiller. Theresa Bodenmiller is 0.6 FTE, so she works part-time. And she is primarily responsible for grades 3 through 8 in English language arts and writing instruction, our history social science curriculum right now. And then we have Brian Shum, who is leaving us to be the AP at the high school. And so we're super sad to lose him as part of our team, but super grateful to have him over at the high school continuing to do the great work. He has led a lot of the professional development and worked in tandem with the high school administration there. He's also largely responsible for the Blended Learning Academy that we've delivered. The whole team works on the New Hire Academy, and Brian works on coaching high school teachers as well. So, and Brian is our extraordinaire with helping build data reports. So that position we will really miss. I think he'll get a few phone calls. So with that, they are going to present and share information, taking turns, coming back and forth. There are tweaks. All of them are really involved in a lot of different pieces of it. And so they'll pause in between each section and give you a chance to ask questions, because otherwise it would be way too much all at one time. All right, so with that.
Can I have a quick question? So last night at the board meeting, we approved Kristen Ward. So is she one of the folks that's joining your team?
Kristen Ward is joining the team, yes.
Okay, and then what, will she be taking over what Brian was doing, or?
No, we have another coordinator who has also been hired. Her name is Gabriela Rodriguez. Gabriela comes to us with a high school background and an English credential. So she'll primarily take over. Every year there's a restructuring of who's going to oversee what and what fits the team's needs. So she'll take over a lot of working with the high school, though, and she has an English background, so we'll pick up and use her expertise in that area to some extent. Kristen Ward is going to come back in and pick up a lot of science, which is what Debbie Ritchie's unfilled position used to take care of, and she'll do a lot of coaching with 3rd and 4th grade in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I'll let them get started.
All right, thanks for having us this afternoon. We're excited to share with you some of the work that we're doing and some of the programs and all we're doing to support teachers throughout the district. So our objective today is for you to walk away and be able to understand all the layers of supports that the curriculum team provides to teachers throughout the district to achieve high quality teaching and learning. So we're going to talk about various different things that we're involved with, various different programs and academies. Each one of us is going to have an opportunity to come up and share. So Dr. Nicholas last night used the analogy of a band, and I think that's a pretty good analogy for what we do. As with any good band, we're all proficient within our own area, but when you get us all together, there's a synergy that kind of builds on what each person is doing. So everyone has an expertise, but it's really us all coming together and working together when we achieve our greatest things. So it's been a great thing to be involved with, and we're just constantly working on new ways to support teachers. So as we kick off here, I just wanted to provide some context in what it is that we're supporting, what our vision of that is. So each of us is really focused on supporting this idea of teaching the LUSD way. And our commitment is for that every single student that comes into the district, they're getting the best quality education they possibly can. So we talk about the LUSD way as teaching rigorous grade level standards, using best practices and just-in-time supports that make the learning accessible for all students. So if that is our guarantee for every single student coming into the district here, I think what gets all of us pumped up as we come to work every day is really thinking about how we can support those teachers to make sure that they're providing that for students and making sure that we're recognizing that just with students, every teacher comes to us at a different point in their career. We're getting brand new teachers. We have teachers who are veterans. Some have been here for a long time. Some of them are coming from other districts, but each one of them has their own personal needs, and we're working to meet them exactly where they're at to give them the support so that they can provide those supports to students. So one of the things that we hit them with as soon as they come in to the district is that in every class period, every single day, first and foremost, there's clear goals and expectations. That's fair for a student in a classroom. If we want them to learn something, we have to immediately let them know what it is that they're supposed to learn and what it is that they're going to do to demonstrate that they've learned it. So clear objectives, a pitch for every single lesson. So the teacher should be letting the students know why what they're learning is relevant, why it's important to them, and how it's going to lead into what they're going to learn coming down the road, how it's linked to what they've already learned. And so they have that context going into it of why that's relevant to them. The other thing we want to see every single class period every day are literacy strategies. So reading, writing, listening, and/or discussion. So that should be clear within the objective how students are going to demonstrate their proficiency in a literacy strategy. And the way we do that and the way we gauge that every single student is meeting those proficiency standards is we're doing constant checks for understandings, or CFUs. And one of the things that we really hit home with teachers is that those checks for understanding have 3 parts to them. You have the check itself using either some kind of technology tool, or there's lots of different ways to do them within the classroom that are more old-fashioned, but you're doing a check for understanding. You're providing feedback to those students based on how they're doing on that check for understanding. Immediately, as a teacher, you're getting that feedback, and based on that feedback, you're seeing that some students are proficient, some are not, so we take action based on those results. So those students who do not know or haven't met that proficiency, we have strategies that they have in their tool belt that they can throw out and say, okay, we have this group of students who have not met that proficiency. Here's how we're going to support them in getting there. Or those students who have already met it, here's how we can extend your learning within the class period so you can go beyond. So this is what we're working for teachers every single day, and this is what gets us as excited, is that having everyone come in and making this guarantee to students in the classroom every single way that we're seeing that teaching the LUSD way. And I also want to talk about this a little bit before we break into the individual other segments. We really started thinking about what it means to be literate. When you break it down and you think about the most fundamental purpose of education, it's to produce people who are literate. And thinking about where students are now and thinking about the skills that they have now going into workplaces that exist now, our definition of what it means to be literate has to change to meet those demands as well. So we recognize that there's a lot of information that students are being bombarded with and will continue to be bombarded with as they leave school. So one of the things that they have to do is recognize what is good information, what is bad information, and what is worthy of our time to focus on. So as we go through this cycle, and we call this our learning design cycle, because we're trying to design learning experiences for students that takes them all the way through this. So when you think about that good first teaching, that LUSD way, those objectives, literacy strategies, checks for understanding, this cycle helps them think about how they're moving towards that to produce students who are literate. So the first step in there is input. We provide information to students to work with, and we provide it in ways that it's accessible to all the students in the classroom. So we can chunk it, we can scaffold it, we can use reading strategies, we can provide instructional videos to students to get them in the information in the first place. Once they have a basis or a solid grounding in that information, then we engage them in thinking strategies. And this is recognition that, usually the best ideas don't come from individuals, they come from a group of people. And ideas become better when we talk about them. And ideas become more clear as we talk about them together and develop an understanding. So we provide some input, provide the space for them to engage in some thinking strategies. Then we give students the time to organize their thoughts. So now that they've had this information, been able to hash it out a little bit with peers, now it's time for them to organize their own thoughts that have been clarified, and that sets them up to produce. And in the produce stage, they're doing some kind of writing, they're doing some kind of scripting, they're doing something where they're taking those new ideas that have developed and putting that down on paper somehow. And this whole thing happens with the recognition that the most important element is communication throughout all of this. So not only do students have to be able to produce good ideas, but they have to be able to communicate them in a way that's going to make other people pay attention to them. And that's how we're saying, this is how you're literate today. This is how we're preparing you to be literate in the workforce or whatever it is that you're doing beyond school today. So everything that we're doing to support teachers is with the intention of making sure that we're having that deliberately planned instruction so that we have all of those elements of good instruction within it, and we're taking them through the learning design cycle to produce literate students. So as we come up and we talk about each of our individual programs, it's all kind of benched in this. We're coming back to this, and this is our intention. So before I turn it over to Katrina for the next session, any questions on that initial piece?
I was just, sorry, it's just more just for my understanding. You said the word scaffold. I thought it was interesting. So, because I know you each have grade assignments, would you say that the way you do the LUSD way is like you have your big steel structural and you kind of scaffold your way down? So you start, what do we want? This is our end game, and we like trickle it all the way down grade by grade to get the students where they need to be to get there. Is that what you meant by scaffolding?
Scaffolding, and I think that's what you're describing, is definitely what we do. When we're talking about scaffolding within the classroom, we're talking about specific instructional strategies. When we're talking about scaffolding, we're talking about things that we can do to make sure that students can understand that. So we can put in, say we're assigning a reading assignment to students. A scaffold might be that we're previewing that reading for them. We're going through and we're highlighting the key words that they're looking for in the passage. We're giving them questions to look for the answers for as they're reading through that passage. So those scaffolds are things that we're putting specifically in instruction to make it accessible to more students.
Okay, thank you.
Great question.
Thank you.
I'm going to turn it over to Katrina. She's going to talk about coaching.
So actually, I'm not talking about coaching. I'm Jenna's official clicker. She's up there, and I'm just clicking through since she's not able to do so.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful, thank you. Thank you for Katrina, I appreciate it. So we're going to talk a little bit about coaching, and as coordinators, a majority of our work centers around instructional coaching and providing ongoing support to teachers within Lammersville. We take a lot of pride in assisting teachers to improve their capacity to reflect and apply their learning to their work with students through informal and formal coaching. Over the years, our department has worked hard to foster an atmosphere of trust and collaboration, where now a majority of teachers reach out to us for support consistently throughout the school year. Katrina, if I can have you go forward a slide for me, thank you. This would be an example of informal coaching. We are thankful that we have been able to build a strong rapport with teachers where they will email or call the appropriate coordinator when there is a need. On a weekly basis, we receive well over 100 emails and work hard to respond quickly, as we know instruction must not be impacted. The needs that I'm referring to range from in-depth curriculum questions, brainstorming strategies that will help struggling students, student management techniques, planning for small group instruction, all the way to how to project within the classroom. These consistent reach outs have prompted us to provide on-demand support through class visits, Zoom meetings, phone calls, and emails right then when teachers are in need. Informal coaching can also lead to things like demo lessons, co-teaching, and lesson planning if desired by that teacher and coordinator as they work together. These coaching sessions are often short-term, and coordinators schedule them in on a daily basis. On a given day, coordinators spend multiple hours addressing specific informal coaching requests. Now, going a little bit more into formal coaching is more of a lengthy process that is initiated by an administrator when they have determined a specific need for an individual teacher. Before the process begins, the administrator, the teacher, and the coordinator all meet together to discuss the goals that have been previously identified in order to get on that same page about the expected outcomes. Throughout the process, in addition to weekly meetings, there are often a variety of strategies that are used to support that teacher in obtaining their goals. And those consist of things like demo lessons, co-teaching a lesson together, lesson planning and backwards mapping, as well as peer observations where you go out with the teacher, you observe another teacher teaching a similar content, and then you can talk, brainstorm, and debrief together. The goal in this entire process is to support the individual teacher to obtain new skills and confidence that translate it back into their instruction. Once the administrator feels the goal has been met, then the teacher would be removed from formal coaching. In a typical year, we would support approximately 15 teachers in this capacity. In addition to informal and formal coaching, we also embed coaching into the academies that we offer within the curriculum department. And I know you heard a little bit about that yesterday, and Brian also mentioned that earlier. The 3-year-long academies that we're going to talk to you about today are offered within Lammersville School District, but their courses also recognized by the Teachers College of San Joaquin and can be taken for postgraduate units if desired. Each academy embeds focused coaching cycles, demo lessons, culture building, collaboration, and of course, discourse, feedback, and reflection within its curriculum. We really feel that each academy offers teachers with a wide range of skills and resources that can directly impact instruction within the classroom. I personally have had the pleasure of, one more for me, Katrina, thanks. I personally have had the pleasure to lead the Reading Academy that is offered to kindergarten through second grade teachers. And on our inaugural year, we had 37 participants. The teachers participate in an empowering guided reading professional development course of study that focuses on the development of reading, spelling, and related language skills. The teachers learn how to analyze students' needs, to intentionally plan for and select appropriate skills and strategies to accelerate the progress of struggling learners within reading. This, of course, is done by using a balanced literacy approach and by incorporating reading, writing, listening, and speaking into each guided reading lesson. So even though this isn't the same visual that you saw Brian present a few minutes ago, it directly correlates with how this academy was built and working towards understanding what it is to be literate. Within the Reading Academy, teachers meet monthly to learn new skills and strategies within the differentiated reading groups model that you see here. They experience them in action through a demo lesson and then bring them back directly to their classroom to put them in action. I was privileged to get to go into those 37 teachers' classrooms, see their new skills in action, give feedback, and then guide reflection. Although we know all students benefit from this type of learning, teachers choose 3 to 5 struggling students to focus on within the academy. And then within that, they'll collect anecdotal data on a weekly basis and record their progress. Throughout the collaboration of the academy, we would create individual goals for those students, establish criteria to know if a goal has been met, and then celebrate successes as they were exceeded. I'm really excited to be able to offer this academy again for this next upcoming school year, since we had to take a short hiatus from it during our distance learning year. So in addition to the Reading Academy, LUSD also offers a new hire academy to all new teachers that enter the district. This ranges from interns that are new to teaching in general, all the way to 20+ year veterans. We average approximately 30 teachers annually, except for the years where we open a new school, and that often bumps it up a little bit, that range from TK through 12th grade, special education, music, and PE. The new hire academy kicks off prior to the start of the school year with 3 full days filled with logistics, curriculum specifics, demo lessons by the coordinators, focusing on understanding the LUSD way, as well as bonding as a cohort of educators. This academy also meets monthly once the school year begins to focus on timely content that will support their instruction. They receive one-on-one support from the coordinators to help them transition smoothly into our awesome school district. So Katrina will be taking over from here to dig into our new hire website, but since I covered a lot of information, I wanted to stop for a second and open it up for questions.
I have a quick question. For the New Hire Academy, do the substitute teachers or new substitute teachers have an opportunity to participate in something like this?
If I missed something from what you said, I greatly apologize, and please feel free to correct me, but I believe you're asking if substitutes get to participate in the New Hire Academy and what supports are given for them.
Correct.
Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, it's just a little faint, so I just wanted to double check. So we have really focused on supporting our substitutes, our long-term substitutes. And in the case of last year, when we had long-term substitutes come in as a cohort themselves to help support hybrid instruction and the Distance Learning Academy, or LVLA. So we mirror what we do for our new hires at the start of the year when our long-term substitutes come in. Some need more support than others, but we really make sure that they have the tools that they need to be successful, as that's what's really important for kids, is to have that rigorous of instruction as any teacher here in Lammersville. So it might be on a one-on-one basis. It might be on a full day pullout. It depends on the scenario, but they definitely are supported and invited to come to all of the monthly New Hire Academy meetings.
Thank you.
I have a question on the academies. The New Hire Academy, is it mandatory or voluntary? And if it's voluntary, do you see? I mean, why would a teacher not do it?
So the New Hire Academy is highly recommended, but it is not mandatory, meaning that it is not written into the contract or anything like that. We have a very successful rate of teachers who opt in just to make sure that they're up to pace with where they need to be. We do have some instances where a teacher may join after those first 3 days, which really that's like the fire hose moment where they're getting so much information. And we'll make sure to reach out to those teachers and get them the information that is needed. We also have teachers that are highly supported by admin, that if they need extra support within being a New Hire Academy, or if they need support by admin to make sure they have coverage in order to attend New Hire Academy. It's been a really successful process without necessarily having the mandatory term to make sure that all of our new hires are successful.
Thank you. And with respect to the Reading Academy, is it limited just to K through 2 teachers, or can any teacher attend it?
So, and if I mess up on the question, please call me out. But within our Reading Academy, we've really focused on our primary teachers because we know we need to focus on our K through 2nd grade in order to get them ready to be able to read for their learning environment in 3rd grade. So not that we wouldn't take this and continue to accelerate it for years and grade levels to come. But since it's new, we've really stayed focused on our primary grade teachers for the instruction.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a very informative portion. I would be interested to know if it's an appropriate question. I would be interested to know what the take rate is. And you may have said it, and I was getting a drink of water, but the take rate of our new hire teachers, what portion of them actually take us up on the offer of New Hire Academy? And then the killer question that I have is, do we have any data about the teachers that take the New Hire Academy and the ones that don't, specifically as it relates to non-reelects?
A new hire is hired into the district, we communicate with them about the New Hire Academy. They typically come. We don't tell short-term, like one-day subs.
Right.
We do invite long-term subs, or mostly they're hired somewhere in the year. And so they will come, and we pay them extra in order to attend because they want that information. What has happened is you may have a teacher who misses a day. There are other days where they're released with a sub for the day, and so they'll come. So they may miss one session here or one session there because of any given number of reasons. But for the most part, I can't think in the entire time we've been doing this of a teacher opting out entirely and not participating at all
Okay,
or
thanks.
even greatly.
Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah.
I heard that it wasn't mandatory and was like, gee, it seems like you ought to take us up on that, but
Yeah.
I think
for
it's
the- for the
presented that
most
way.
part.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And then in terms of longitudinal data, I don't think we're,
It's not necessary, given that basically everybody takes it, right? So I withdraw the question.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now Katrina is up to dig a little bit further into New Hire Academy and show you the website that is there for support.
So I know yesterday Heather showed you guys the website, and so I'm going to show you a little bit more. We do have this website that we push out to them. Well, if they've been hired, we try to send it out now. So as soon as they're hired, HR will send it out, and they will get the link to this new hire website. And it's going to help kind of let them know about the LUSD way prior to them getting here. It's not everything, but when we've had them in the past, when you give a lot of information in 3 days, it's a lot to absorb. And so we thought if we slowly trickle things out, that potentially the learning process would be a little bit easier on them. So we do here have a landing page with a welcome video, just letting them know that they are going to be meeting us for PD in August. And we kind of ask them to go ahead and click through the tabs and see, maybe you already know some things or maybe something's brand new. We remind them to reach out to us if they have any questions, but just kind of saying look through this, we're going to see you in August. So we do have 4 focuses here, and I know we saw this last night, the LUSD way, the district vision, who we are, and the classroom. So within the LUSD way, I know Brian spoke with you about the LUSD way, but we kind of break it down for them a little bit more. And we kind of talk about, that first good teaching, a little bit deeper, even down to what our classroom environment is, and really connecting with our students and having behavior supports in place. Practicing lining up seems like something maybe simple, but we need to practice those routines and procedures. And so it just kind of reminds them, how to welcome your students and how you're going to have that successful year. And we do talk about these things when they come to us in August as well, but it's just kind of a reminder prior for them to look at. And like I said, lots of information here, lots of ideas, whether they're a veteran teacher or a brand new teacher. We also focus on the instruction. And again, I know some things were brought up about the objective here at Lammersville. We do ask that they have a daily objective posted. And actually, that's probably one of the most challenging things. And we work really hard with our new hires to have this daily objective posted because it does need to have certain components within it up on the wall so the students understand what those outcomes are. So there's some different things here for them to start looking at and understanding that we have to have that noun and that product and that verb within the objective. And lots of teachers, they come with some knowledge of knowing, but maybe not this format that we focus on here in Lammersville. So SMO is a big thing that we look at examples and non-examples during new hire. What is a good SMO to put up on your board versus one that's maybe not as productive, like learning through a worksheet. We can do a little bit more than learning and having that product to be a worksheet. And so we help them dig deeper in that sense. We also give them tons of resources and tools. And I know, again, we saw this check for understanding yesterday. And so tons and tons of, my goodness, if you can't find something to do here, right? Try different things. Some of these things probably look familiar to some teachers, but it's, a range that we could potentially look at in order to check for our students' understanding. And so as you go through this website, there's so many clickable links and videos and whatnot that are things for them to look at prior to seeing us. So that way when they do see us, they're able to ask us questions. And, what does LUSD do? Why do I have to do this or why do I have to do that? Student discourse is something else that we're really focusing on, and there's lots of supports there as well. And then small group is another focus here at Lammersville that we've been doing, and trying to get our teachers to see what that looks like and how to implement those within their classroom. So that's our LUSD way tab. We also have a district vision tab, and this is our mission statement for our school district. And then we kind of remind them about 21st century learning, the 4 C's. Possibly they've seen things of this sort. Hopefully they've seen these things at this point. And then reminding them and showing them, these are things that we offer here for PD. So, you know, as you come to our district, we have lots of opportunities for you. And, you know, we want them to take part in these programs that we offer. And so we kind of give them a little sneak peek as to what we have here, as well as letting them know that we have coaching here at our district. So that is the district vision tab. Who we are is actually just kind of just taking them right to the website. It does link straight to our curriculum page, but they do have the ability to click through other departments and learn who those people are. And I know sometimes when they come to us, they like to put faces to names, and that kind of helps teachers. So we remind them of who we are and that they're able to always reach out to us for support if needed. And then the classroom tab, and I believe this is the tab that Heather had gone into yesterday, reminds them or shows them how we grade here. You know, we have different grading scales for different grade ranges, and so it shows them what those are, as well as how to communicate with parents. We have an awesome community here in Mountain House, and parents like to be involved, and so that's different than some schools. And so we just remind them, like, hey, you know, whatever you're communicating through the Aries platform, or if you do weekly emails, or you send a printed newsletter home, like, let the parents know what's going on. They really, really want to know that. And I think it's important here with Mountain House's community to keep them involved in their child's education. Subplans, again, what to include, how to leave successful subplans, and then looking again at our curriculum. And when they go to the curriculum place, it tells them what is used. So if I click actually on that link, it's going to tell them coming in, maybe they've had some exposure to some of these, you know, Eureka or whatever, something that we do use. And so I think sometimes it's a little more front loading for them prior to them coming to the first 3 days with us. Maybe lessens their anxiety and workload just a little bit. So this is our new hire website. It's a lot, but we have found it to be a very successful tool. And this tool is not only actually for our new hires. We actually do refer our veteran teachers who have been here for 5-6 years back to, hey guys, go check out the LUSD Way tab. And this is also linked to our current curriculum website, so everybody has access to it as well. Any questions about the new hire website?
I have a quick question about the LUSD way and the SMOs, particularly for the TK, the kindergarten grades, and many first graders who are not yet reading. So how do the teachers post those or relay those to the kids where they will remember throughout the day what the objective is?
Well, we remind teachers to spiral back to it throughout the lesson. And some teachers, they put it in kid-friendly language, right? And we want them to start the lesson with the objective, like Brian showed you guys an objective today. But they can put it in kid-friendly language so that the kids know. Some do like a choral reading of it. You know, they ask and check for understanding throughout to relate back to that objective. Believe it or not, they're actually pretty good at it.
Is it usually written like on the board as well, or is it for those little kids it's just verbal?
No, it's posted in the classroom per academic area. So like math will have one, ELA will have one. Some teachers have them write it, you know, on a whiteboard or on their paper, or, you know, you could draw a picture about it, but it's just to reinforce what they're learning for the day.
Okay, thank you.
Could I follow up on her question? Because I know you mentioned that the standard-based measurable objective is for the kids, so they know what they're learning, but is there also some sort of research or philosophy that shows that it makes the teacher better and more focused to write those objectives?
Of course.
Okay. Of
course. Yes. It's for everybody.
Yeah.
In a sense. And it really makes you think about, why are you doing this, right? Your objective is going to lead your lesson in our student outcomes. And so between the teacher and the students, or any of us walking into a classroom, we should be able to walk in and look at the objective and say, oh, wow, this is what they're doing. This is what they're getting to.
Yeah.
So it is for everybody.
Okay.
I have a question, and it's similar to what Trustee Olson asked. So we have the different methods for students in the check for understanding, right? So what resources do we provide for the teachers? Let's say the teacher just, is assigned a new class, and she needs like a refresher course, right? Do you personally, do we have the coordinator sit and coach the teacher, or do we have videos, or what sort of resources do we provide?
Well, we have some linked here. We do have actually Pear Deck. We have district licenses to Pear Deck, which is a great tool to check for understanding in the moment. But we do coach them through one-on-one. It kind of depends on what the teacher is, what their outcome is, what they're getting at, what they're teaching, as to possibly what idea we'd give them to try. There's very simple ones, and then there's more complex ones that involve technology and whatnot. But we do work on one-on-one, and then within our academies or within our demos, we show that process so they can see that and get ideas from that.
Thank you.
Of course.
And so if you teach a combo class, you have to write 2 objectives every day.
Yeah. Yeah, they're actually getting better at it. They really, really are. I mean, I know when it was a newer thing, it was a hard thing to think about, like how you're going to put that up on the board. But they're doing great. And the why behind it, if the students understand why they're learning something, it's just proven that they're going to do better.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
So I am going to move on now that I have a billion links open. Oh, that wasn't it. Oh, it went back to the beginning. Sorry, guys.
It's all right. We'll get there.
We'll get there, right? Okay. So we have also the Blended Learning Academy. And we've been doing this for about 5 years. Brian and I have been doing it quite some time together, and around 150 teachers have graduated from this program. It is an application process, and so teachers do apply to be within the academy. Depending on how many spots we have for that year, will determine how many teachers we take. This upcoming school year, like Jenna said, she gets to do her reading academy again. We get to do blended learning again. We have 25 teachers participating this upcoming school year. And the Blended Learning Academy it's in-depth instruction to help them understand how to take technology and effective learning and kind of put the two of them together. Blended learning is not just using technology. It's using effective pedagogy in order to blend the two together so that our students can become effective thinkers and communicators. And so this year, we kind of have that second bullet point is kind of like our mission for what it is. And it is all hands-on. They do participate in full day workshops. There is one prior to the school year starting, and it's pretty much all hands-on. And we work with them, and we're going to follow that LUSD way design circuit kind of cycle that you guys saw. And we're going to focus on the different aspects and how to bring technology and the instruction part together in order to help our students become better thinkers and communicators. So we're going to follow that cycle as well. We do meet monthly, and some of the sessions are full day, so they are pulled out. Others are after school. There is a one-on-one coaching cycle as well, where we go and visit the teacher's classroom and see how they're implementing that part of the cycle, and then we have them do a reflection process on that. So this looks like a lot, but this is the year for our academy, and we do incorporate the ISTE standards into this academy as well to have a higher student outcome. So it's all aligned. Every session does focus on a tech component. However, that's not the only thing that we're focusing on. We're trying to get them to effectively put it into their teaching and blend the two of them together. So you can see there is a tech part there, and we will be focusing on using those tools. But there is another component on that blended, on the LUSD design cycle that we're going to focus on too. We meet as a team or cohort. I'm actually having 3 cohorts this year because I have to break them up into smaller groups. And then once they go out and they implement that within their classroom, which is not an above and beyond task, they are going to use their curriculum. They're going to use their students. So it's all just within their normal planning. They're going to execute that. We'll come in and we'll watch, and then they're going to have a PLC team, and they're going to debrief and kind of look at what they did, what went well, what they could have done better in order to take them through that process. And so there is a final task at the end, and that task is going to be kind of, it's going to be up to them whether they want to do a video or almost like a board kind of presentation. We leave that part optional to them about how they want to show us the cycle that they've gone through with their students. And it's a really fun academy. If you guys ever have time and you want to stop by, we would love to have you guys there for a day or a couple hours, whatever it may be. It's a very energetic group. We have lots of fun. And they're together all year, so it's great. It's a great time. So I'll miss Brian, but it's a lot of fun. So this is our year and our Blended Learning Academy. Any questions about Blended Learning Academy?
I was just curious. You said there's an application process and you cannot always take all the teachers. What is the priority? Is it teachers that are struggling that you take first above others, or is there a different standard you use to decide?
Well, like I said, there's an application with questions, and we look at the questions and their responses, and we do want to get as many people through the academy as possible. And so we've had at times like blended learning advanced and different like tiers to it, so people could take it and expand their teaching even more. But as far as this year, we did have a limit to our numbers, and a lot of it is based on the application process and the questions that are asked specifically to that application.
Okay.
And we don't.
Why do you want to do this? What do you want to get out of it? Why should we have you be a part of this process? We want to know that they really want to be an invested learner.
Okay, thank you.
And we don't let them overlap academies. So if they're a new hire, they're in the new hire academy, they can take blended learning next year. If they are in blended learning, then we don't want them to double up on a reading academy as well, because it becomes too much. You guys can see here they've committed to a year long, and there are things that they have to do. It's involved, and so we don't want to have burnout. So we we'll eventually get everybody, right, through all the different academies.
Right, no, it makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
you're investing a lot of time and resources, so you want to make sure that it's on the other end, the same kind of commitment and investment.
Right.
Makes sense.
No other questions?
Thank you.
So we also focus a lot on professional development, and this past year has looked a little bit different for professional development, a lot of Zooming, which I can't say we had really done a lot of before, but we're getting better at it now. Hopefully we're not staying on Zoom, that's my hope. So we do have a bank of library videos. We created a Wakelet this year, which is just a platform, kind of, if you think of YouTube, but it's called Wakelet, that we sent out to teachers, students, and parents. And it's how-tos, how to log onto your Google Classroom, how to get into your student's Canvas account, just those videos that parents and teachers and students need help with as a resource. And so we have a big bank of those now, and we also have quite a few demo lesson videos and whatnot that teachers can refer to if they want a check for understanding or something of that sort. And so We have a lot of videos that we've collected over the years, and we can easily send those out for resources and tools for teachers. We do also work with them on the district adopted curriculum as well as a supplemental program. So whatever our adopted curriculum is, we obviously support them in that. They do get trained by the company itself. However, the ongoing support is kind of what we do. You know, if it's Eureka Math, we focus on that with them. We do demo lessons. Possibly we have a Friday where we work with them on number talks or whatever it may be, as well as maybe you've heard of iRead or ST Math or any of those things, which are also our district adopted, but not our core curriculum. We support them in those things as well. And so those could be after school PDs. It could be something that an admin requests, but those are all things that we also do support them in. Pandemic support, I know you guys heard about this yesterday. We had quite a turnaround, quick turnaround, lots of Zoom support, lots of emails, lots of calls, lots of blogs and videos, and just you name it, it was there. And I don't want to kind of repeat what you guys saw yesterday, but we were able to reach a lot of teachers through the quick turnaround and even through this school year. And so it's looked very different. However, I think we feel that it's been fairly successful because teachers are still every day reaching out for more support. So like I said, I hope we're done with that part of it. Admin requested PD, we have admin reach out, and if they want us to meet and work with their teachers, we do that as well, whether it's small group, their site. This year we've had some EL workshops, backwards planning workshops, reading workshops, and those were all prompted by an admin asking for us to support their teachers. And like I said, that group can look different, but admin has the ability to reach right out and plan some time with us, and we'll go and visit their teachers and help them with specific needs at their site. And then next year, we're still going to be doing PD next year as well. We will be focusing heavily on writing and then PLCs for next year. And like I said, these will all remain, and our libraries and whatnot will continue to build. But I think that's pretty much a lot of the PD that we do in a year. Any questions? As well as our academies, right?
What is a PLC?
A professional learning community.
Okay, thank you.
And so we're going to build a lot of that into our academies as well. And the district is also focusing on PLCs as well.
So we've been doing PLCs, I think, for 3 years. We started with the high school. We sent admin and key leaders at the site to a specific training and then brought it back. And so popular was that training that the K-8 principals and rounds asked to go. So we sent them. Then we asked for a commitment from our administrators. The administrators made the commitment along with their key teachers. And we've now brought the PLC training here, and we've done that 1.5 years because last year we got stymied. And we're going to reboot and go right back to it. So we actually have designated PLC trainers starting the year. It's a global team building collaboration around data and kids learning. Throw it back to you, Bornkamp.
Yeah, and I went to that training. It was amazing. So that'll be our focus, is helping support that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Could I ask one quick question? Because a lot of what you coach teachers with is about, educating the students. And when there's a teacher that struggles with classroom management, does that also fall under your purview to coach them in that manner as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And Brian's going to kind of tell you guys what the high school focus of professional development is.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on what Katrina was talking about for professional development. There's a few fairly unique programs going on at the high school that are supported by our team as well. So we talked about PLCs. The high school has a daily collaboration period where each academic department, and I'm going to go more into depth on this in a few minutes, but they meet as a PLC group, and I'll talk about how they do that, but we support that. Another program that we support is the Success program through their PLC and collaboration. So Success period is daily interventions for students who are struggling with understanding some of the material in class. And we talk about, how to identify those students, how to use data to put them in the success period to use it more effectively. And having been to traditional high schools, what you see is a lot of times those teachers work in isolation. They go into their room at 7:30 in the morning, they come out at 3:30 in the afternoon. Maybe they see some of their colleagues at lunchtime, but for the most part, they're solo practitioners. What we're doing a lot of is doing a lot of collaboration. And to make that effective, we have to support that. And we have to get those teachers working together in a structured way. So that's what the PLCs are for. Another thing that we support at the high school is a site level walking and talking instruction. And that's another way to get the teachers out of isolation. So we'll have teachers walk the campus together, and they go into classrooms of other teachers where there's actually instruction going on. And that's a fairly unique program that started at the district level. But the purpose of that is to get out of your own classroom and actually see it happening. Because in those more traditional places, if you're just in your classroom from morning till afternoon, you're not even seeing what your neighbor's doing. And so when you are able to see what other people are doing and be able to come out back into the hallway and talk about that, that's growing your own practice. So we support that quite a bit. Another thing that we supported quite a bit this year is tiered professional development on things like checking for understanding tools. So for example, Pear Deck is a tool that we use throughout the district, including the high school. And some teachers have been using that for a few years, and they have a few tricks up their sleeve. So we take them through a workshop specific to them to show them how to use it at a more advanced level. We have teachers who are just coming in brand new to the district and aren't sure how to use it. So we'll have a workshop specific to them on how to use it there. And a lot of our work has also centered around writing and inter-rater reliability, which is just a fancy way of saying that if we give an essay and we're scoring that, we're talking about inter-rater reliability. Let's say Theresa gives that essay, I give that essay. It means at the end of the day, we're both going to give the same score to that student because we've talked about it, we've used a rubric, we're looking for specific things on it, and we have agreement what exactly it is that we're looking for. So if a student's coming through my class or Theresa's class or whoever else's class, they have the same expectations to them across the board. So a lot of the work specific to the high school level, but really generally too, has been centered around that. Break for questions before we move on?
I like the idea of the inter-rater reliability because I still hear, with different teachers teaching the same subject from my children and their friends, how one teacher could be more challenging or more difficult than another teacher. So I think that inter-rater reliability kind of evens that out a little bit. So, there's not favoritism, I guess, for a particular teacher in choosing your class schedule, if that's an option.
Right, so that's exactly the purpose of it, is to kind of level the playing field a little bit. And that reliability provides equity into students, that they're coming through and they're getting the same experience. And on that same note, talking about, the expectations and everything, part of going out into other classrooms and seeing what other teachers are doing is growing your own practice. And Trustee Olson, you had asked the question a few minutes ago about there being research about objectives or not. And something like a learning objective, there's unequivocal evidence that just providing a learning objective boosts student achievement within the classroom. So going out and seeing how other teachers are doing it and be able to take that back into your own classroom is a really powerful strategy for them. So just something like a learning objective, when you think about the return on investment, you simply write that on the board, you communicate it, you return to it throughout the period. That's something that if we're doing that universally, we're doing a good thing right there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian's not going to go too far. He's going to piggyback on what I'm saying in just a moment. Here's a great example of what Katrina was just referring to. So before I move to my section, I remember that she was just talking to us about the Wakelet. So that's an example of what the Wakelet looks like. Remember, that's the video library that she was referencing. And then at the bottom there, the pandemic call center. You saw a little clip of that yesterday. The organized chaos is what that was. Okay, so I'm here to talk to you about committees today. We hold committees for our teachers. We have multiple committees. I'm specifically going to be talking about the writing committee in just a moment, but we do have a GATE committee, which Kristen heads that committee. Debbie Ritchie was responsible for the science committee. Katrina and Jenna both worked with teachers on our math assessment committee, and then I am the coordinator responsible for our writing committee. So just to give you an overview of what a committee is, a committee is comprised of a group of teachers from various grade levels, from TK really through the high school, but we're focusing really with TK8 in a lot of the committees that are listed there. We ask teachers to participate in committees from various school sites. So again, trying to have equity across the district. We're not just working with certain teachers from certain sites. We do align our committee work with what's happening at the high school. So Brian talked to you about what professional development opportunities are happening there, and we want to make sure our committees are reflecting what's happening at the high school as well. Most committees begin with an adoption process. So our state framework, our Common Core standards typically will shift or alter or change over time, and that means our district then needs to adopt new curriculum. And so these committees will look at that curriculum and determine if that's something we want to recommend to the board to adopt. And then teachers don't just end there. They take that curriculum and they put it to use in their classroom. So the adoption committee turns into a writing committee or a math committee, and they kind of stick together to see if that curriculum is really doing what we wanted it to do when it was purchased. From those committees, we also create things like scopes and sequences. We've been talking about that a lot over the last 24 hours that we've been with you. So I'll show you what a scope and sequence looks like in just a moment. But really the core of all of our committees is to have feedback from our teachers, right? So if we have adopted a curriculum, we want to make sure it's being used in the way that it was sold to us, right? If we create a scope and sequence, we want to make sure that all teachers are finding value in it. And if not, what can we do to tweak that scope and sequence so it's more valuable for our teachers and for our students? And then also committees work to create district assessments. So oftentimes curriculum will come with assessments, but it doesn't always mean it's a perfect fit for our district. So in just a moment, I'll show you what the writing committee has done to create kind of a tweak to some assessments.
All right, thanks, Theresa. Before she takes a deep dive into some of the curriculum or committee work, I just want to point out that the committees work a little bit different at the high school level because we do have the different academic departments. So the high school is divided into the different academic departments. They all have a daily collaboration period. It's based on the PLC process. We talked about that as a professional learning community. And the whole purpose of that PLC is that the teachers learn by doing. So by going through and doing this work on their own, they're the ones doing it, they're the ones who own it, and the product that comes out in the end is going to be better for them and better for students. So the PLC itself is based on 4 basic questions. What do we want students to learn? So a lot of the work that we do with those different PLCs, those different academic departments, is first of all getting them to understand the different standards that either come from the state or the Common Core state standards, next generation science standards, and different subject frameworks. So we dig through those and talk about what they actually mean, what it actually calls for students to be able to know and be able to do. And then from there, once we have a big picture understanding, we identify priority standards. And priority means these are the few things, and it could be 5 to 10 things per year in a year-long course that, if nothing else, students know this by the end of the year. So we guarantee that as they move through this course, at the end of the year, they know those priority things. So the first couple of steps in that PLC is going through the framework, identifying those priority standards. Once we have identified those standards, then we develop assessments. So we say, okay, this is what we want them to learn. How are we going to know if they learned it? And one of the things that we do to ensure equity is have teachers use common assessments. They're all using the same tool. And that's where that inter-rater reliability comes in. So once we administer that assessment, we come back, we score them, and we provide feedback. Then we look at the data and align teaching practices. So we say, okay, we've identified this group of students who doesn't understand or isn't proficient yet. What can we do to support them? And that's when we can talk about supports like success period or small group instruction within the class, providing additional scaffolds. And we're making sure that teachers are teaching or sharing the best teaching practices. So if Katrina did a really awesome job in her class and her students are showing that they met the proficiency at a very high level within her class. Maybe in my class, they didn't. Maybe Katrina has a way that she was teaching those that would benefit me, that I could use in my class. So once we know what students are to learn, then we take them through the process. How will we know if they've learned it? That's where the common assessments come in. Then we ask, how will we respond when some students do not learn? Again, how do we provide those supports? And how do we extend the learning of students who already know it? So just because you've met proficiency doesn't necessarily mean that learning ends. How can we provide additional opportunities for you? So committee work, a little bit different at the high school level, but it's based on that PLC process.
I have a question on the high school collaboration, please. So, do we also follow the same PLC process for the advanced placement, the AP subjects too?
We do. So they go through their own PLC, and those advanced placement teachers meet on their own. A lot of times those AP teachers are singletons, which means that you might be the only AP US history teacher teaching that. So you don't have somebody to collaborate with who's teaching AP US history, but AP overall has certain goals and certain objectives to be met, so they collaborate on that. And they also work with the teachers in the regular college-bound courses to say, these are some of the things that we could be doing within those courses that would funnel them into AP. These are the common things throughout the department. So when you start off in 9th grade, you're working on these things, and by the time you graduate from high school as a 12th grader, these are the things that you've gotten to, whether you're going into AP or following a normal, college-bound or other track.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm very jazzed about writing, so I'm going to be using my hands. Just watch me. Writing committee. So I'm the coordinator, as I said, for the writing committee. I'm really passionate about writing, so this is perfect for me. We took a look at our CASP data for the district and realized that there was a need for strengthening our writing instruction, which is why the writing committee was created. Again, we asked teachers to be part of the writing committee from 3rd through 8th grade. So we currently don't have writing committees for our TK2, which is actually totally fine since Jen is working with them and reading. And we know if we think about that cycle that Brian talked to you about, input is kind of at the start. So we need our students to be reading before they can be writing, right? So eventually we do want to have a writing committee for our TK2. But right now we're working with teachers from 3rd through 8th and again, collaborating with the high school as well. So again, we looked at our CASP data and we looked at Common Core state standards. We looked at the framework and we said, how can we find better strategies to share with our teachers to ensure that we are moving forward with writing within our district? One of the first things that we recognized is when we looked at the Common Core state standards from 3rd through 8th grade, there was an underlining theme or something that was reoccurring in those state standards. There are 3 types of writing genres, and kids are going to be practicing them from 3rd through 8th grade, and they're going to have to master them because they're still going to do them in high school as well. We've noticed that narrative is streamlined throughout. Opinion just shifts to the word argumentative when you get to 6th grade. That also cycles throughout. And then informative switches to explanatory when you get to 6th grade. So throughout, those were the big things that we noticed. We wanted to make sure that we were hitting those writing genres with integrity throughout all of those grade levels. And the best way to do that was to ensure that we had the same tool to assess our students. And that's where our district-wide writing rubrics kind of came from. And I'll show you an example of that in just a moment. Other things that we've done in our writing committee is taken a look at our assessments that we have in Benchmark. So Benchmark is our ELA curriculum that is used from 3rd through 6th. And then we have collections, which is in 7th and 8th. So we took a look at our assessments to make sure that we really were assessing our kids in writing and that our instruction was matching how they were being asked or how we were assessing them. So I'll show you in just a moment what an assessment looks like. And then finally, the writing committee, like I mentioned, creates scopes and sequences to ensure that all teachers are teaching those 3 writing genres throughout the year, not just touching on it once and then forgetting about it. Because again, the end result is CASP, right? We want to make sure that our students are going to be proficient when they're writing for CASP. And then also I'll show you in just a moment what a writing focus outline looks like. Again, I'll talk mostly about benchmark. I could show you all of the things that we've done for collections as well, but we have limited time. So we're just going to focus on what we have for benchmark, which is, again, 3rd through 6th. That's the curriculum that we use. Okay, so here's an example of a rubric. So the writing committee, again, noticed that those genres kind of streamlined throughout all of the grade levels, but we didn't have a tool that was consistent or that built upon. So we have a rubric for 3rd grade that matches the Common Core state standards, is aligned to CASP as well, so that we know we are asking them to do things that they're gonna have to do on CASP, and then is for our district, right? So we took a look at different rubrics, we took a look at the CASP rubric, and from that was born the LUSD writing rubric. Again, we have one for 3rd grade, 4th and 5th, they share a rubric, and then as you can see here, it's 6th through 8th, they also share as well, and that's because the standards are very similar in those grade levels. So it's broken down into 4 categories here. It provides teachers with kind of a roadmap of where we want to go with writing instruction. So what you'll see in that red box is the at grade level standard. That's the standard for that grade level. Like, I've got a 6th grader, they're going to be moving on to 7th grade if they can show me that they're proficient here, right? So that's really the goal of the rubric, is in that red box. The great thing about a rubric is it tells us, again, the goal of teaching, but it provides that common language so that my students understand when I say the word thesis, what that means. What is a clear thesis versus an unclear thesis? Where does that put me on a rubric? How can I improve? I can say, okay, you're approaching grade level. Now I can see on a rubric what I need to do to get myself to at grade level, right? So it's providing common language for instruction. It's providing common language for teachers during PLCs. And it's encouraging students to self-reflect. So my 6th graders would look at this and say, okay, well, I now know what I need to do to move up to the next category. Without a rubric, you really can't have that conversation and consistency, right? Which we've been talking about a lot today, is having consistency. And from the teacher feedback that we've gotten as a committee, we've gotten a lot of solid feedback about this. Like, it is very helpful for my instruction. It is really helpful for my students. It can be very wordy. So that is our next step as a committee. I mean, just looking at this, it's very overwhelming. It was very overwhelming to create. So if I'm talking to a 3rd grader, I want them to be able to access it as well. So we're kind of tweaking it a little bit to make it more kid-friendly. That's one of our next goals as a committee. But we do have, I'm showing you argumentative, but again, we have one for informative and we have one for narrative as well. I believe we also have one for literate analysis for 7th and 8th grade. So that's our writing rubric that our writing committee has created. Also, I talked to you about the need for assessments to really being aligned to what the end goal is for writing. So if you look on my left here, you'll see a chart that says benchmark assessment overview for the year. So as a committee, we took a look at our curriculum and we noticed that there was a lot of different types of assessments that Benchmark was providing. Fantastic. But which one is the best for our district? We asked our teachers one year, I want to say it's about 3 years ago maybe, to try out all of them. This trimester, I want you to try an interim assessment. Next trimester, let's try performance task. Or sometimes within one trimester, we tried a unit test and a performance task. Overwhelmingly, the feedback that we got from teachers was, this is too much. Over-assessing students is not where we want to go, right? So this is too much assessments. Okay, great. So which one is the right one for us to choose then? We took teacher feedback. We looked at student data. The great thing with Benchmark is they've got a really good reporting tool, so we can actually see how our students are doing. And we found that the unit test was actually the best choice. So again, the unit test is now what we're going to see in the next couple slides here. The unit test provides teachers, again, with that common tool for monitoring their student progress, common language. So when I say unit test, all of our 3rd through 6th grade teachers now know what I'm talking about. Our students now know what I'm talking about. We all have that common language. And the great thing about these unit tests is it gives students familiarity with questions they're going to see on CASP as well, and writing that they're going to be asked to do on CASP as well. All right, so let's, yes, yes. let's see if I can.
see how many assessments were there, and those assessments are still there.
Yes.
Streamlined down to 3. 3 are the common assessments that all of our students and all of our teachers will administer. The other assessments are all at teacher discretion. What do you want to use? What test is going to give you the information that you need for your children? So those are all at their discretion, and we'll still have teachers giving a wide range of those assessments, because we can go in and see what's been given and still glean some data out of that. But we've narrowed it down to 3 that will be common district-wide. And also on the rubrics, that as part of developing those rubrics, we made sure we met with the English department and aligned it with the English department high school rubrics.
Thank you, Heather. Okay, so to give you an idea of what one of these assessments look like, again, this is 3rd through 6th grade, this is a benchmark assessment. So students are asked to read, annotate, and analyze multiple texts. Oftentimes it's 2 texts, not just 1. They're asked all different types of questions where maybe they have multiple choice, multiple part questions, drag and drop. Again, all of these are very CASP-like questions. So we're preparing them for what their end result is, what they're gonna be asked to do on the CASP. So that's an idea of an assessment there, but remember that this is only one portion, right? We're talking about writing. So this is some reading analysis. If you think about that input part, right? This is the input of the cycle that we were learning with Brian. So this is the reading portion of the assessment. That's not where it ends. We do have a writing portion. So after students have annotated and read multiple texts, then they're asked to do a constructed response. Unit tests have 2 constructed responses. One is shorter, one is a little bit longer. So it's a really, really lengthy, wonderful assessment because we get a lot of great data. But the word lengthy, I wanted to point out with you because we did get a lot of feedback from teachers saying this is a little bit overwhelming, especially for our 3rd graders, right? This is a 20-question test, and we were hearing, wow, it's taking my kids hours, sometimes days. We've got to change this. So as a committee, we recognize the importance of assessments, but we don't want to overly assess our kids or have testing fatigue, right? So we thought about, are our students really showing us what they know, or are we getting data that's kind of invalid because they're just done? So we thought about that and came up with a solution of taking that assessment and breaking it in half. So when we ask when we ask teachers, in this case 5th grade, we ask our teachers to give the Unit 1 informative assessment that's done over the course of 2 days, so that students are doing the reading portion with those drag and drop multiple response questions that I just showed you, and then the writing would take place on another day. The end goal here with our assessments is our assessment calendar, right? We want all of our teachers to be using the same common assessments. We want them to be assessing throughout the school year, not just assessing at the last minute for report cards, right? So we have determined which assessments will be district expected assessments. We've planned them out. In this case, there's 1 for every trimester. Each one covers a different writing genre. So you'll see for 5th grade, they start with Unit 1, it's informative, Unit 3 is narrative, and Unit 6 is opinion. That doesn't just mean that we're only teaching that genre during that trimester, but that is the focus for that trimester. So that's kind of your overarching big picture. Now we kind of bring it down a little bit with a scope and sequence. I apologize, it's really small here, but I did want to give you an idea of what a scope and sequence looks like. So this is not just for writing. I know I've talked a lot about writing. We do have scopes and sequences for all of our subjects. For pretty much every grade level. So we kind of break it down, taking that big picture of the curriculum and saying, okay, let's look at it in terms of a year, a month, and in just a moment I'll show you even like down to a week. So we really take that heavy lifting of what the curriculum is offering and support our teachers in saying, let's make this actually manageable for you. So with this scope and sequence, again, this is benchmark, and you can see that it tells our teachers, okay, for trimester 1, you're gonna focus on these units. For trimester 2, trimester 3, here are the units that you're going to focus on. It outlines where you're going to be giving assessments. And then these are, again, it all helps our PLCs, right? So when we're meeting for trimester 1, we know, okay, the focus was Unit 1 and 2. That's great. We're all on the same page. We all have the same language and the same data for our PLCs. So that's an example of a scope and sequence. And again, I went from big picture, now bringing it down to a little bit narrow of a focus. So we looked at a year, now we're looking at a unit. So we're looking at one unit within a trimester. In Benchmark, we have an outline here that basically showcases what Benchmark is, which is a lot of resources, a lot of lessons that can be overwhelming for students and teachers. And so the writing committee basically said, what's most essential here? What are the most essential components of this curriculum? Because it is a little bit overwhelming. And from that, we've created something called the writing unit focus. So this brings it now from a unit focus almost down to a weekly focus, with the idea of this kind of like a modeling of a teacher, I'm modeling, you're working with a partner, and then you're working independently. So we have hyperlinks here for the rubrics that I showed you. It tells teachers what lessons you'll be doing for writing within the first week, the second week, the third week, and what you're assessing on the fourth week. Every unit is 4 weeks long, from 3rd grade to 6th grade. So every teacher is kind of following that same outline. It also shows us the overarching writing genre goal for that unit. So you'll notice that this one is informative. So all of the lessons for those 3 weeks of instruction focus on informative writing. However, we're not neglecting the other genres. We want to revisit those as needed. So they are listed down here as supporting writing assignments. So if I noticed in the previous unit, I had some students really struggling with argumentative. Well, my focus is informative. I can still meet with them in small group and review some of those things. Also, we can align our history here as well. So if I'm teaching, prehistoric civilizations, I can connect that to informative writing, because I know that's what I'm doing at ELA as well. So hopefully it does some cross-curricular connecting as well with this unit outline. And we don't leave it there. On the left here, we also point out opportunities to enrich instruction for all of our students. So Kristen's going to jump on right now and talk to you about GATE. We have linked GATE activities and lessons that correlate with the unit topic. I'm not going to pass it to Kristen until I answer your questions. Do you have any questions for me before that was a ton of information.
I just want to comment that I love how you're so passionate about writing. I think it's
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's great too. But I did have a question, because I was curious, when students actually write their writing assignments, like their narrative or their argumentative, in what grade do they start typing that out on the Chromebook versus handwriting? And does that impact their thinking process? Could that be something that delays them a little bit? I'm just thinking of personal experience. I think on paper because that's how I was trained. And our students are kind of thinking one way and then transitioning.
Yeah. So we, Heather, what grade do we start with Chromebooks versus iPads? So, okay.
So all the way from being, we have touch screens and
Okay.
and then we transition. By 3rd grade, they have to be typing in order to take state testing at the end of the year.
Uh-huh.
So we start having them work on it. So they're transitioning, they're learning to type and do small things in 2nd grade as well, but they're primarily writing with paper pencil. And so in 3rd grade, they'll start out more paper pencil, and they're working towards getting to be more writing on the computer. I would say that there's still going to be a hybrid of those two things going on all the way between 3rd through 6th grade. After that, there's probably a lot more on the computer
Uh-huh.
than not, but that's really at the discretion of the teacher to help the kids make that transition.
Okay.
And you had asked about scaffolding earlier. So I would scaffold that, right? So at the beginning of the year, or the age that I'm teaching, when is it appropriate for me to move from paper over to computer? I would also think about that cycle that Brian talked to us about. When we're at the thinking and organizing step, maybe I'm doing a lot on paper. I'm doing a lot of annotating and getting my ideas down here first. And now I know I've got to communicate that and get my end result on some sort of processing system. So I think it depends on where you're at in the cycle as well.
And then just one other question. How do they learn how to type? Because, when I was a kid, I had an actual class. And I imagine that must be hard if you don't know how to type and you're trying to think and write something. And also you have to find where's A, where's the period. is it just this generation is like way better and they're just born with like the skill? Because I'm curious because I don't even know how my own kids learned how to type.
Yeah. Well, I think you'll see differences in teacher styles and what they do and what they're comfortable with and how they incorporate that in their instruction. But I think with more and more requirements of things being on the computer, like they're practicing it more. They're getting better with it more just because they have to do it. But I do feel like in what I've seen being in classrooms, everyone's kind of doing different things like typing club or, different websites that you can go to have students practice.
Okay.
And this is just my own observation again within my household. I was trained to be a classic typist where you have the home row and you know where every finger is. But my kids are more, they're very, very fast at it. They can almost type as quickly as I am, but they're more the hunt and peck type. So it's again, a different generation. They have a different method, but it's effective for them.
Right.
It wouldn't work for us.
I learned the same way. Did you learn it on a manual typewriter or electric typewriter?
Oh, it was
At
manual.
High school, it was
you gotta
manual.
press really hard.
So I just want to clarify on my understanding. I think the map testing, though, is taken by students starting from the kindergarten, right? And it's on the computer. My understanding.
Map or math?
Map.
Map testing.
Yeah.
Yes, we do have map testing that typically for that young, it's in the spring, but it does start at a younger level.
Young, and it's on the computer.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so take a look at this picture. What do you notice? And what questions do you have about this picture? Go ahead.
Somebody messed up the lines.
Somebody messed up the lines. What else? What else do you notice? Or what questions do you have?
I like the design.
Oh,
What country is this?
very good. What country is this?
The costume looks like. Oh, I see an auto.
Okay,
There.
very good.
It should be from India.
All right,
I see
so
a zebra.
it looks like a zebra. Okay, we also saw that too. We're like, wait a minute, it feels like a cloud picture, right? Like, oh, I can see it now.
Oh,
So-
that's a Mustang.
Oh, I like that. I like that. Even better. Okay, so we would present this picture, and now we'll do just a quick read to see if any of our questions were answered. Okay, were any of our questions answered?
The country.
The country. That's right. That's right. Okay, so taking from what we've just kind of witnessed, things that we noticed, our questions that we have asked, this information we have received just a little bit, and now we're going to take that, and now we're going to look at these pictures. Starting from 1938 all the way to 2009, what differences are you seeing in this progression of pictures? What are you noticing?
Erosion.
Erosion. What else?
The difference is the type of photography from black and white.
Very good. Very good.
Color.
Differences in photography. What else are you noticing?
Pollution or haziness.
What else can you guys notice?
I can tell what's in the water.
If
It looks, is it ice or snow? I don't know what it is.
If the 1938 picture is what it appears to be ice, then it would be you would see the progression of global warming, it would seem, but it's hard to tell from the
It's hard to tell from the black and white.
pictures.
Right.
And it could be different times of year.
Correct.
It only gives us year, it doesn't give us time of year data.
Very good. Good point. He's showing us what we don't know, right? There's some more questions. Hey, I need some more information here. Very good. What time of year is it? Is it the same time of day? Right? Is this pollution or is this haziness something that's seasonal or is it something that's man-made? These are excellent questions that you guys have. We're going to have those all recorded. Now, this is an example from a GATE extension unit that the GATE committee has created for benchmarks Unit 8, and it's exploring Earth's structures. Okay, so typically, this is something that they would be studying anyway, these Earth structures, but this gives these students an opportunity to dig a little deeper, to ask some questions, to really foster that curiosity, write those questions down, and then as a committee we have created or kind of a list or a bank of resources so these students can then go to these kind of trusted sites and be able to research some of their own questions that they have, either about a picture or a piece of art, a video, anything that kind of piques that curiosity. So we won't go through this one, but this is another great one that we have within the unit. So what is gifted and talented education? Well, these are students, children, or youth. This is all taken from the National Association for the Gifted Children. There are many, many different definitions, but this is the one that is nationally recognized. So this is students, children, or youth who give evidence of high achievement capability in areas such as intellectual, creative, artistic, or leadership capacity, or in a specific academic field. So they have this capacity, and that's that key part right there, and who need services and activities not ordinarily provided in the school in order to fully develop those capabilities. That is what gifted and talented education is for. So when we have talked about these different extension units, how do we help teachers who have these GATE students in their class, right? Typically, they will say that a GATE student will know about 60% of the curriculum day one. They'll walk in already knowing those types of things. And that's great, and that's fine, and it's wonderful, but that certainly is not something to set aside. It is definitely something that curiosity needs to be fostered, right? That opportunity to ask questions, and then how do I find the answers to? Right? So that's what we get to do and what we've worked on in these GATE extension units, taking something they're already working on, but giving them an opportunity to dig a little bit deeper. And it also supports that small group instruction. Just like an Olympic athlete needs a coach, these GATE students also need their teacher. So this supports them in their autonomy in the way that they would like to research and find answers to their questions, but then also builds in those opportunities for the teacher to guide their learning and to ask them, and what did you find out, and what else can you find, and let's point out the things we don't know, and to really kind of accept them for where they are and realize there is more for them to be pushed in, and that they can do even more. So as we go through, I'm going to show you some of the ways that we have created some of these. We take real world and high challenge tasks. We are looking at structure and choice, and also their leadership, as we talked about social emotional, but we also talk about recognizing, because very early on, a lot of these students will recognize they think a little bit different than their classmates. And so we want to give them a place and vocabulary around that so that they can understand how they fit in. So once again, with these GATE extension units, we start with Dr. Kaplan's prompts of depth and complexity. You'll see these icons or prompts all over, but they will really focus the learning in on like the language and are we finding patterns and trends. This really helps students and teachers prompt that, let's go a little bit deeper. And then even in complexity, okay, over time, what does that look like? Okay, let's look at this from another perspective. So it really just kind of prompts that deeper learning and deeper thinking. We've aligned it to our core curriculum. Once again, just like supporting the small group instruction, like I mentioned before, each one of our extension units has a teacher's guide. So they're not hunting for it. It's right there to lead them through, but definitely leaves room for teacher creativity. In 5th and 6th, it's very self-directed, how it's kind of laid out, and it fits with benchmark. In 7th and 8th, it is more of a group investigation. It's one thing that you can lead the unit together as a group, and that's something that the teacher can use throughout their unit, because 7th and 8th is structured a little bit differently with single subject teachers and the way that their classes shift a little bit. Theirs is structured a little bit differently than the 5th and 6th. And we are really excited to start new this year, actually going to the 3rd and the 4th grade. To create some units with the GATE committee. So really excited for that as well. So when we are talking about these types of real world and high challenge tasks, these projects cause them to grapple with meaningful problems and pose defensible solutions. This is the whole point, right? Something that's real world. What is this? So that they can really understand and try to handle at their cognitive level some meaningful problems, because these are the type of students who will want to stick with it. It'll actually be pretty difficult to get them off of that subject, actually, when they're that invested. And then pose defensible solutions, because they want to find I want to solve this, and I want to talk to the person who I can get this fixed and I can solve it, right? That's what we want. That's what we want for these students. Also, these activities demand processing ideas at a high level. So multiple streams. We're talking, they not only have their ELA, but they need to know their math and their science, and they're bringing it all together in order to defend these solutions that they have for these real world problems. And so it makes a great opportunity for them within the units that we have, and then also in their enrichment class that they have. Okay, so this is a quote from a GATE student. I can go slow if I want, fast if I'm so inclined, or skip right to the end and work backwards sometimes too. A perfect day is where I am free to think flexibly and act at my own pace. So in order to help facilitate this type of environment for these students, that is what these are doing. That's what these units are there to help teachers create this environment. So they are organized by key concepts and principles of a discipline, not facts. They don't need to memorize it. They know it, move on. Like they're ready for something else. They need something else to really dig into. And it's very interesting, because this is what will happen, is they don't always want to go fast. There will be a situation where they're like, no. I want to know everything there is to know about this. So that picture, we could go back to like, no. What were the lines painted with? Why did it melt? What was happening? What was the construction? Who was over that? And somebody else is like, oh, I don't care anything about that. Tell me more about the cars that were on there and what happened over here. So it gives them an opportunity to create that space that they can go as fast as they want. Yes, I want to know everything about this, to then stop and go as deep as they want, and really to foster that curiosity. Okay, and so within building this, we have talked about social emotional learning, especially in gifted and talented education. It is a very high priority. If you look at CAG, or if you look at the National Association, this is something that they're definitely noticing and putting an emphasis on. So what we have done is we talk about how we are building tomorrow's leaders, right? But then also with our students, guess what? You have to take responsibility for your ability. No more just, oh, I know that already, or there's like, they have to take responsibility. They have to be active. They have to do something with it. So we really, really focus on a growth mindset, because it can become very habitual to like, oh, I already know it. I mean, hold on, there might be something that you don't know about this already. We work on team building, and we talk about strengths-based leadership. One of the key things we talked about, this quote especially from Bill Gates, saying that as we look ahead into the next century, leaders will be those who empower others. So in our strengths-based leadership, we look at ourselves and what we have strengths in. And it's not just math, that they have strengths in other areas. And so how can we take their excellent mathematical brain and their strength in caring and put that together? So once they start to recognize those strengths in themselves, then they're able to look at the strengths of other people and go, hold on, I can make a stellar team, because I have this strength, but you have this one, and you have this one, and together we can make something even better. And so that is what we were building with the social emotional learning with our GATE students, so that they are able to recognize their own strengths, but then also to really pick them out in other people and realize what greatness they can achieve together. Okay, let me go back. Any questions? Oh, how do I go back? Go to the bottom left. There it is. Thank you. Okay. Any questions on GATE before I move on? Perfect. Okay. If any come up, please let me know. Okay, so for the next one, I'm going to show you how we support teachers with English language development. So with our new website, they will come and they will be able to see this in each of their grade ranges. They can start anywhere from, we really talk about academic vocabulary first, because that is what they're going to see cross-curricular, all grade levels, and there's also tiers of vocabulary. And so we kind of introduced that. We have all of that here for them to look at really quick. And so when we start with our academic vocabulary, we also talk about our academic discourse, and we're talking about really structuring this time for students to get that vocabulary around what is it like to have school vocabulary, right, versus playground vocabulary. And next we talk about the difference between designated ELD and integrated ELD. And designated is that protected time that they have with their teacher every single day, that they are talking about and they're progressing in their English language development. Okay, and their integrated ELD, those are those scaffolds we talk about again. Here we're going to have core curriculum, but for our EL students, or English as an additional language students, we should say, because some are speaking 3 and 4 languages, what can we do in our regular lesson that will help the student? Is it visuals? Is it definitions? Is it Google Translate really quickly? Is it Google Images really fast? Right? What can we do within our regular lesson that will help that student access, that make that input comprehensible? So they can go, oh, that's what you mean. Okay, that's a cell membrane. Okay, that's what they were talking about. So they can actually understand the rest of the lesson. We also go through some of our redesignation criteria, what it's like to, what are we looking for to get, if they have an EL status, then how are we going to redesignate them? What does an LPAC task even look like? What does it mean, what does a 4 on an LPAC mean? What do we need to do with meeting with our admin and grade level requirements? What do we have to do with parents and with teachers to approve this redesignation? And the last structure that we have is, of course, very much involved is our professional development with demo lessons and recordings, slideshows. There's a lot of professional development that goes into our English language development. And depending on what the site is focused on and depending on what the needs of the teachers are, depends on what professional development that we work together and structure with. So this year has been quite a bit, especially with how do we do this distance learning. And so we started with training the admin. So admin forum, I was able to come in and show the admin, here's what we would do with your teachers. So admin had an understanding, okay, all right, she's going to show the LPAC tasks, we're going to break these down, we're going to look at rubrics and see how to help these students. And then the admin would come to me, or they would go through Heather, and they would say, you know what, we want this. I'm requesting this type of PD. Then I would meet with the admin and we would talk about what are those outcomes? What are you looking for from your teachers to show that this is working, this is what you want. And then together, either as a grade level or grade span, that's when we would meet together. We would either through Zoom this year or previously, it was demo lessons and debriefs. And then we would actually get their data with their students. We'd pull the reports from Illuminate, that Brian would create. We'd get those papers in front of us. Real kids, real data, what does it mean right now? And then we'd have time, and with me and with each other, to plan these lessons. What does this designated ELD plan look like? What does this lesson look like? And how do we move them from, okay, if they're a 2 in this rubric, how are we getting them to a 3? How are we going to help them build that language so that they have more of that to use within their day, and then also through all of their subjects? That's a quick overview. Any questions about ELD?
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
How frequent is it that we get a student who has very, very little English at all, and what supports do we have for teachers who really can't convey much of anything and can't understand much of anything?
Awesome. So for newcomers, we typically are seeing more of it in the younger grades, right? But we do have some in the upper grades and even in the high school, we'll have newcomers, right? And within their ELA curriculum, they will have ELD supports, and within that they'll have newcomer, and it looks significantly different. Because if we're talking, head, shoulders, knees, and toes, that's something we know. A newcomer wouldn't know that. And that's something that a teacher would talk about with their newcomers within these types of lessons. It's very structured in street, house, building, floor, ceiling, things like that. So yes, there are supports built in right in with their curriculum for newcomers.
So, and my second question is with these lesson plans for the English learners, I'm trying to understand, I guess they align with the regular lesson plan, so a teacher may have two sets of lesson plans, but they just align. So the lesson plan for the student who is already an English speaker, and then a lesson plan that aligns with for the English language learner that aligns with the daily lesson plan. I guess, is that what I'm envisioning?
You're so close. Yes, good. So what you have is you have your whole group, right? And then within your whole group lesson plan, like you're saying for everybody, you're going to have those scaffolds. You're going to have remember, Mrs. E. Quinto, that you're going to put this picture up. Remind them that identify means we're going to look for something. And I'm just going to say it just like that. Because sometimes in my mind, I'll forget that. Okay, you guys, we're going to identify all of the key details in this. And they're looking at me like, what she said some details. I wasn't quite sure what we're doing with that. But I'm just going to remind them, okay, I've marked it on my notes. I've highlighted it really quick. I'm like, define, identify, look for. Okay, remember, we're going to look for, we're going to identify. So those types of notes are all within my big, regular, integrated lesson plan, if that makes sense. And sometimes it might be visual prompts. Remember, this is this building we're looking at. This building looks a little bit different than this building. This one's our school building. So just different types of things that you'll have integrated within that. Now that is integrated ELD. That's totally separate than our designated. Yes. Yeah, thank you.
So I have a teacher in a typical classroom in our district. Would they potentially have some ELD students and some GATE students at the same time, so that they're going to be scaffolding all over the place?
And sometimes they're the same student.
Okay, yeah.
Yes. And absolutely. So yeah, just like, GATE doesn't discriminate. Mm-hmm. And they're in all walks of life and in all demographics. And absolutely. They could have GATE and ELD all in one student or several spread out. Mm-hmm.
Just another reason teachers are amazing.
Aren't they incredible? They are amazing. They are amazing. Wonderful. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
All right, I've got our final topic for today, which is data analysis and how we're supporting teachers there. So there's a lot of promise for data for a school district and for teachers. So a very big picture view can tell you how the district is doing. Down from there, how schools are doing, grade levels, classrooms, and then individual students. But oftentimes what we see is that data goes in someplace, and it doesn't come out, at least in a usable form. So a lot of what we do is we provide usable data to teachers so they can make better decisions about students, and also provide structure for conversations for having that discourse about data so we can make better decisions at the classroom level. So what we're trying to do is avoid the data dungeon where all of this information goes in and it never comes back out. So one of the examples of ways we're doing this is really thinking about how we can provide a more complete picture of our students. So we're all familiar with a report card. You get 3s, 2s on there, or you get A, B, Cs, and it's pretty limited what information you can get about a student from that. And a lot of times that's kind of like autopsy data. It's after the fact, it's already done, there's nothing you can do about that. But we can also use data to show how things are going in real time and show lots of different things about a student. And this is an example of one of the reports that we've created. It's a student profile report to show lots of information about a student that's more real time. So if you look at that top section there, there's basic demographic data, but it also tells you if there are any special programs that you need to be aware of. Are they an IEP special ed student? Do they have a 504? Any health flags? This student is an English learner, so that's something important to note about this particular one. And also absences. So that top section can give you some general information about the student. Then we go into academic data, and we have lots of different data points we can look at that are not attached to the grade necessarily. And these have to do with unit assessments, common assessments. DRA is the reading assessment that they take each trimester to show how they're progressing. From there, we look at MAP data, and students take that in both reading and math 3 times a year, so we can see historically how they've been doing. Are they growing over time? Are they not? What can we tell from those trends? And for our English learner students, there's some information in there about how they've done specifically on the LPAC, which assesses how they're progressing as a learner. So a lot of what we do is providing teachers with tools where they can get a more overall accurate picture of where students are at in real time, and that way they can make better decisions. So you can think about the power of a teacher taking this into an IEP meeting or a parent conference meeting where they're showing multiple data points and not just, hey, they're in this grade in first trimester or this grade in second trimester. They can point out this is how they're doing over time, and here's what we can do to support the student. Here's another example of some of the work that we're doing. Teachers are really great at building relationships with students. Teachers are really great at designing supports for students and working with students and communicating and getting them excited about learning. They're not so good at compiling data, and we don't want them to do that because it's not a good use of time. But it turns out computers are good at compiling data. So when we can automate things and get that in the hands of teachers and remove them from the step where they're doing that by hand, that makes it more useful for them. So it's an example of a report that we've created and that's custom to our district that was based just on that. So on the left-hand side is an Excel spreadsheet that a principal was making by hand to help teachers out. And they were doing a really good job. It's colorful. You can see by looking at it, overall trends and everything, but it was taking them a really long time. So we were able to take that and automate that and create basically the same thing and remove the step where the principal is inputting that data by hand. And we see classroom teachers doing this too. A lot of them have their own individual ways that they're playing with the data and bringing it in. But one of our goals is to make sure that we can automate as much as possible, turn as much over to the computers as we can as possible, so that teachers can focus on those things that they do really well and remove them from that other part. And finally, when talking about the structures of the conversations that we're having with teachers, we talked about the PLC process and those 4 questions. What do we want students to learn? How do we know if they've learned it? How are we going to respond when students do not learn? And how do we extend the learning for those who already have? We do a lot of work with conversations with this in PLCs to get teachers to the point where they're more comfortable using the data. Most teachers don't come in with a natural aptitude for using data. They're excited about working with kids. They're excited about that piece of it. And the data piece, they're not as comfortable with. So we do a lot of work with them to make them more comfortable with that so they can see, this is how you can make better decisions in the classroom. This is how you can design supports for students in the classroom. So looking at a report like this gives you some good overall data, but if you look down towards the bottom, it breaks it down into individual standards. So on most of our district common assessments, we have reports like this where we can have those follow-up conversations and target those standards specifically that students aren't performing as well in, or individuals or groups of students aren't performing as well in. So we can go back and more strategically target those and be informed about how we're going to do that. So a lot of work with data, with teachers to make them more comfortable and automate those processes coming through our office as well. So we've spent almost 2 hours here, and our objective has been for you to understand the layers of supports the curriculum team provides to all teachers within the district to achieve that high quality teaching and learning. So we could probably go on for a while longer, but I think that's a good intro for you. So we'll leave it for any general questions at this point.
I have a general question, and it Trustee Olson and Boulay touched on it earlier, but it's about keyboarding. And to me, and I'm no expert, But to me, it seems like it would be well worth having a district-wide keyboarding in the lower grades to get kids going on keyboarding early, given the more and more reliant we are on electronics and computers, laptops, and the like, because I never learned how to type. I'm still a hunt and pecker, and I'm not very good at it. And I know that when you're trying to do something timed, and a lot of tests are timed, if you're not good at it, it becomes frustrating. And if we could get that into the kids early, maybe around second, third grade, whatever, when kids start first grade, whatever, when kids start transitioning from the touch screen to the keyboards, it seems like it would, and I know that we're asking our teachers to pack a lot of instruction into a limited amount of time, but to me that seems like it would be time spent early that would save time throughout their educational, and I know that's a long-winded question and it asks not really for facts but for opinions, but if anybody would like to voice an opinion on that, I'd be interested to hear it.
I would say that it's definitely something that we've discussed, maybe not formally as part of a committee, but it is something that is probably worth investigating a little bit further down the road. When I hear or read about things in different places, there are a lot of comments similar to Trustee Boulay that said the research out there on people who have been studying it are saying that in some ways it's our old school thinking that this is the way you have to type and it's the most efficient, and that there are many two-thumb typers who actually type faster than many very fast traditional typists. So there's some argument among the experts on whether or not traditional typing is really required. That being said, also having learned on a manual typewriter, I think there's value in learning to type that way. Most of our teachers are pulling different apps. There's a lot of free apps that are out there, so it's why we haven't really invested the time and energy into it. Computer science standards, though, are something that are coming to the forefront more and more, and it's something that we've worked to start integrating into the science overall as part of the curriculum, so it's certainly something that we can look at further.
And as far as, I know my kids can type 1 million words a minute with their thumbs, and I understand that, but I also understand that different kids learn different things different ways, and maybe some kids would benefit from, classical keyboarding rather than thumbs or hunt and peck or whatever it is. And it seems like something that might be beneficial to look into.
Mm-hmm.
We can look into it.
Mm-hmm.
I have a very general question, and this is in relation to the English learning. Do we have any plan, or are we thinking about setting up an adult English learning curriculum or something like that for people who are new to the country and they're talking about, they want to learn English?
So my guess is the best access to something like that might be Delta, in that I don't think we've had some general conversations about adult school, and typical adult school, at least the adult school I'm most familiar with is the one in Manteca and the one in Stockton, and that was really for people trying to get GEDs and such. Community colleges are evolving right now.
Okay.
And becoming more workforce oriented and more skills oriented, and so like the college and career, they're going to play a significant role.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean we couldn't look into it, but I would predict, and I could look into my good friend Dr. Jesse Garza Roderick, who is the dean over there, and find out what the kind of programs they have.
Mm-hmm.
But that would probably be a starting point for someone who was looking for that.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't currently have an adult school program.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments by the board?
I just want to say, I'm sorry. I'm really impressed with the level of detail all of you work with every day, and to help the students and to help the teachers, and I'm impressed with the organization of how you have it set up and how you each have your own little area of specialty, and working with specific teachers and how streamlined it is. So very good. And again, I do think it's a program that, yes, it should win a Golden Bell Award and be written up in a professional journal.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you all for devoting the last 2 hours to presenting all this information. I just, your energy when I walked in and the energy I felt throughout the presentation is amazing. All of you just demonstrate such a passion and jazz hands for writing and GATE that just makes me feel so happy to be part of this school district, because I know that our students are in really good hands. Our teachers are in great hands, because you're not just doing this as a job. I can tell it's a passion, and it's a love of educating kids. I was an education major years ago and got my credential in French and history teaching, and I might not have gone to law school if people like you existed back in that day. So I'm grateful that our students and teachers have this resource. I think the LUSD way is such a wonderful way that I really think we need my brother went to a school called Challenger, and they used to call things the Challenger way, and they had a song. I think we need a song about the LUSD way. Like the Challenger song was like, every day is a wonderful day when you're learning the Challenger way. But, I think
My understanding is Shum played in a band.
Okay.
I think it could be a rap.
I mean, I think it would be fun. You could introduce the people to their new academy with the LUSD song.
Be careful what you wish for. It'll come out of this team.
But thank you so much. I really appreciate you all. And this was very informative. Thank you, Dr. Nicholas, for arranging this.
Well, all I can say is this is a special place, and it's mostly special because of the people, but these special people take the tools and give it to our other special people who help those most special people, which are the little people. So, and that energy you talked about, when they were here in the building, every time I got cranky, I'd go down there and I came down here to misbehave or give Heather a bad time. And they just enjoyed watching us banter, and just to sit around them and talk stuff and smart people stuff and just stuff. It's really fun. So one of the negatives about building the Sherburne's Palace is they're not in the building anymore. But I'm telling you, any day of the week, any time of the year, it's like this constantly.
Further questions or comments by the board?
Yeah, I obviously wanted to say thank you for giving us some of your valuable time and sharing with us. It was very educational, and I mean, having been on the board, I had some sense of how the process worked, but not in anywhere near this level of detail and understanding. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I do really want to see your new digs, right? Like I believe it finished during pandemic pretty much, and I haven't been able to tour it, so I definitely want to see it. And then I'll end with a question. In response to the parent that felt that we should have a pandemic playbook before the pandemic, my question is, are we going for a manual for planet-killing asteroids or zombie apocalypse?
I'm going to pick the zombie apocalypse.
All right, then. I look forward to hearing about it.
And I will just close by saying thank you all very much. We appreciate you coming here today. And I will echo what my fellow board members said, that I'm very impressed. Maybe the most impressive thing was the enthusiasm that all of you show and passion that you show for your jobs and for our district and our teachers and our students. And we appreciate you. Thank you.
So Heather and I have like a 3-minute thing, and we're 5 minutes past our deal. So I think you said that when they were done, we let them go, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you don't have any questions, we're gonna let them go, and then we're gonna do a modified version and just kind of play jazz with me a little bit. Okay. So I kept these folks up late last night, so I'm
Thank you
feeling
guys
guilty.
so much.
So thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Have fun in Oregon, Jenna. Okay, so I mentioned it a little bit last night. We're not going to play the video. We'll wait for the board meeting, okay?
Okay.
We've been working with the former Google executive. His name's Dr. Prasad Ram for 7 years. He is a computer genius. He was an executive in the Indian Google Corporation. He helped design Google Maps. He transitioned sometime in his career about, 10, 12 years ago, that education is a human right, and he wants to find a way philosophically, metaphysically, intellectually to provide all the kids in the world excellent access to information and education. And so that seemed intriguing to me. I was excited to go meet with them. We got to meet with them. They're in Palo Alto now at or actually they're in Redwood City at the Oracle Labs, paid for by the Oracle Deep Pockets. And they've been building this program. And originally it was an online open source curriculum tied to, some analytics. At the baby form of analytics. Now, analytics has taken over the entire world. I understand you can throw a pitch in a baseball game and they can tell you how fast the ball's spinning and whether or not you have goo on your fingers or not. So analytics have evolved in a long time. You wanted me to use the baseball example, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay. So,
One for you.
so I worked with Pram and went there and sat around with a bunch of coders who were from like Princeton and stuff. I had the greatest lunch of all time asking them questions, and I was the crazy old guy. It was the best day ever. And long story short, we got bigger. We've applied that approach to many different things. And then Sherburne and I started partnering. I passed it off to Sherburne because, it's really finding the way to manage that, those analytics is really, her role. And she worked with his team, which was educating people, some technology people, and we finally found a really good landing place for our 6th through 8th grade math. And she really gets a lot of credit for finding the right place for that. So that's kind of the context of why we're here to talk today. We're going to bring forward to the next board meeting an expensive action item that's going to be paid for by state and federal dollars associated with learning loss and basically helping kids get smarter, better, faster by providing tools to teachers. And Heather's going to explain to you very briefly what this is, but it ties with put Lammersville on the map. So this is something that we've been trying to get to for years, and it's ready to go. And Pram, Dr. Prasad Ram, has partnered with a number of different organizations and other big players in the education game and the analytics game. And along with Pram comes Stanford, Cal, National Science Foundation, and some other big deals. So our investment over a period of time would be to help take what they have now and take it exponentially to the next level for real-time, in-the-moment analytics for every kid. How'd I do?
Great.
Thank you, Heather.
Great.
See you later.
So I'll tie it back to where we just ended our presentation with Brian. And Brian was sharing some of the reports that I usually envision or someone asks for, and then Brian has learned how to take our data that we have in our system, use Illuminate, and build reports that really show what we know. So we can bring all of that together, because as he eloquently said, teachers, A, don't have the time, and B, aren't very good at pulling the data together. They are getting better at reading the data, and they certainly are good at saying, okay, so let's look at how we dig in and start doing it. So the better we pull that information together, and the quicker we do it, and in more real time that we do it, the better. What really happens, though, is that we have data on this program, we have data on that program, we have data on that program, we have data on that program. And if any of you in your personal lives have really worked on trying to say, well, if only my tax program would interact with my accounting book program, with my banks program, with my checkbook, with what I went to Home Depot on my credit card, all of that talk to each other, I wouldn't have to spend time figuring it all out myself. So in a grand scale, what we're trying to do is take all of the platforms that we have, whether we're using open ed resource or we're using paid for resources that are really great, and have the computer start automatically pulling all of that together and giving real analytic outcomes in real time, day by day, all of the time, without the teacher doing anything other than looking at the report and saying, this is where I need to jump in and help. Because guess what? All of these other programs, they're also going to say, now, this is what we recommend is the best resource for you to use right now. And this is the next resource. So we'll have the computer artificial intelligence in order to get that done. Where we come in.
Can I interrupt real quick? Sorry. Time. 181 days, 6 hours a day. If the teacher's spending time pulling together all the...
Every minute counts.
Every minute counts. They say 20% more time. I don't know if that's pretty idealistic, but can you imagine if we gave every teacher for every lesson time back, how much more they could teach?
So when you think about it, computers are never going to replace teachers. Software is never going to replace teachers. But software and computers can do a lot of really good things, and they can adjust. And what that does is that does buy teachers time. When computers are really smart and software is really smart, let the computer and the software do what it can do so that the teacher spends her time with the things that only she or he can do with those kids who most need it. That frees up that time to be a lot more efficient and effective in it. So in the big picture, Pram, who's part of building Google Maps, if you think about the map tells you which way to go, right? And it says you want to go over here if you want coffee, you can go to Starbucks, you can go to McDonald's, you can go to Pete's, but you can make your choices, but those are where you're going to get coffee. You probably don't want to go to AM, PM, but you might. So that took a lot of years to build Google Maps. And that's still where we're at, because what he's trying to do is build a Google Maps for learning, which is called Navigator, so that it's pulling all of that information together from any resources that a district, paid or free, has access to for using, partner with another group who is able to do all of the data integration that's required, which is quite complex. It will be world epic changing in the same way that Google Maps was epic changing, if they can do what they are doing right now with pulling and aggregating data, and then it feeds into this Google Map for learning. And so in order to do this, they need to partner with schools. And that's why it's been a journey. It's been 6 and 7 years getting to where we're at, even having a navigator that works with open ed resources in a very focused part. But they now have enough that we're ready to move it into more epic realms. And they're identifying NLab schools, Navigator Lab school districts, that will work with it. And we actually co-develop with them. We give them feedback. We tell them what we need in order to make this work better, because they're computer programmers. They're not educators. Those guys over there are data integrators. They're not educators. They don't know what reports we need. So they need us to help develop this product as much as we need them. So it is, and it benefits our teachers and our students the more that we do this and come together, and eventually will benefit society at large, I think. I think it's a grand vision. But in short, that's where we're going. It's epic. It still won't happen overnight. It's going to be a multi-year adventure still going forward. But we are really at a tipping point that's really pretty exciting.
The last point is, and we're still in negotiations about this, but we're trying to get the copyrights on the name of it, and we're going to call it Sherburne Nation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is the whole system primarily analytical, and it will give us very specific data on each and every student, and pretty much that's where it ends? Or does it then start tailoring lesson plans for each and every student?
Not lesson plans. It tailors what products they might want to use within the computer systems of whatever you have access to, either open ed resource or paid resources that we choose. So the computer can do the work that the computer can do.
Okay.
Let the computer do it for you. Teacher, you can now look at that data and say, computer can't do that. I need to go in and do that. So now the teacher is using their time more efficiently.
So one of my big thoughts about it is, first of all, I love data. I think it's amazing. I think it's very, very helpful. One of the challenges I see with the teacher, though, with the data, yes, it can be helpful, but if you have 27 kids in your class, all with 27 different levels of needs, does the teacher still have the time in the day to specifically handpick lessons and for 27 different kids? I think that's where I mean, maybe it's, I don't know. That's right.
Well, add to that before we had computers helping tell us, the teacher was also trying to figure out all of those needs because those needs still existed and they didn't have it. And then when we added some in, now I have to look at 30 different reports and I have 500 standards if you put all the subjects together, and the math is just overwhelming, right? That's why we need to let the computer make those decisions for us and take care of the things that it can take for us. So now instead of 27 students and 500 needs on standards, right? We can go in and say, I need to work with these 5 kids on this one area because this is where we're not making progress.
Just going back 20 years, you adopt a curriculum and it came with a set of books, teacher's edition, supplementals, supplementals, and it was this big thing, and it was on the teacher, every teacher, so they're already doing it. So what you're concerned about is what they've been living.
Right, no, I totally get it. I understand, and so I think, again, the analytics are great, and then just trying to make all that data work for the teacher, because I think any good teacher in this day and age can teach to the average student, can help some of the struggling students, and may have an opportunity to help challenging students. And I see those as like the 3 broad categories, but then when you add all this data, you actually have 27 individual sets of needs.
Right, and we look for the commonalities where we can bring that together.
Okay. And you know, like what I see is this is real-time information. So whereas a lot of times our data is not good in the year we get it, it's good, like, you know, sometimes, or it's not good until like the next semester. So you're playing catch up all the time, because by the time you get to the data, it's like, oh, now I've got to like catch them up to here and also get them to there. Get them to there. Sorry. So I mean, I think that the thing that's I'm getting excited about just hearing about it is the real-time ability to kind of adjust and adapt to what the students need, so that they can maybe get to the end goal faster or on time at least.
So next time you all visit sites, next time you walk classrooms, it's kind of hard. What are you going to look at, right? You got to kind of pick something. Just look in all the classrooms of all the kids that are quietly going about their way. What are they really telling us? You had information about which ones are struggling and quiet, which ones are the gate kid that's already checked out, all of those things. I think about time. Every day those kids are quiet, and we're not 100% sure because we're waiting for the end result data to come in. Just think about the time for each one of those youngsters about, and particularly if you look at the high school, right? Because the kids have mastered the art of. So anyways, go ahead.
I mean, this all sounds great, and it's being doing similar things in the corporate world. I'm excited, but what I don't understand is, where is the real-time data coming from that we're talking about?
Yeah, it'll come from the sources ultimately when it's fully fleshed out. Because if our students are learning lessons, let's say Edgenuity My Path that we just did. So there's all of the data where they're doing their individual lessons on there, or iRead when they're doing their individual lessons on there. But other times they're just on the benchmark platform learning. And they're doing a lesson and they've been reading something, or they've gone to a website to do research. In the end, all of that information, and the teacher can also go on and design an assessment, and it will all gather into this platform so that in Pram's big vision, it will even capture how much time you spent on items, how many things you tried, which resources you're going to more often, so that you learn about a learner's grit, a learner's perseverance, and you know about them as a person as well, to help bring all of that together to tell you the information. So it's really bringing in every source eventually.
I thought,
Which is kind of overwhelming to me to think how they can figure out how to do that.
I thought that's what, that's the obvious answer. And I thought that's what you were going to say. And I know that my son has been out of high school for, 3 years now, 3.5 years now, maybe 4. And where does the time go? But I remember one of my son's struggles, and the reason I'm pointing to my son is because he's the last real world experience that I had in terms of education at the high school. But his big complaint was, I don't know how I'm doing because the teacher doesn't grade the stuff and get it in whatever the tool is so that I can see, because I'd see his grade being an F, and he's like, they haven't put, just calm down, Dad. Like, it's all going to get in there. I'm doing fine. And so I'm like, okay, if that's where the data's coming from, then we have to have a mind shift and say, this either A, the way that we are doing assignments and grading them needs to shift, and it's online, and so therefore there's immediate feedback, or it's got to happen, like you got to grade and get it in and all of that.
Talk about the math and then expansion.
So
where it's at now and where it's going to expand.
So, to tie to your point of grades, you're absolutely right that really happens with grades and all of those things. And grades are subjective in and of their nature on their own, because I could weight the final really hard, or I could weight all of these minuscule learning assignments all the way along the way really high. And so even though I got an A at the end, all of these things when I was still trying to figure it out kind of negate the A, and I end up with a B or a C in my class anyways. What does that really mean? Because I still mastered it in the end. So Pram, what he's built is competencies. It's not about a grade. It's about, do you know it or do you not? And so when you're working on a competency, he has what he calls a skyline and a high line. And so on it, it looks like a New York City skyline. All of the little skyscrapers are built of competencies within strands, lowest level competencies all the way up. And so children have skylines all the way across in different places. And then there's a high line. This is what they should know by the end of the grade level, as the way it's identified in all these different competencies. And then whatever is filled in with the dark blue is mastered. And then whatever is light blue is things they're working on, and whatever is gray are the stuff they still need to know to get to their high line, where they need to be by the end of the school year. The beautiful thing about this is we've been looking at it, using it, working with our middle school math already. I sent out an email, and I can't remember what the astronomical number was, but it was, I'm going to say like 3.5 million competencies that our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders gained in math this year by their work on Guru, all going in and just working on what was open ed resources, actually, to help fill in their learning and their learning gaps. And we're one of the pilot schools. I can tell you that there has to be a correlation between the fact that our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in a pandemic year had a 1% roughly gain in math based on end of the year map versus last year. So at minimum, there was no loss during a pandemic when they weren't really in school and teachers couldn't really monitor them. And I'm saying Guru has to be playing a role, because this is the first time that we've really emphasized strict implementation across the district of getting everybody in there and getting them to get those competencies earned. And so, there's way more work to be done. We need to move out of the 6th, 7th, and 8th. That's why I said it's a multi-year journey. The idea is they're going to have it in ELA. They have it in history. We started looking at it in science. And parents will be able to see the high line and the skyline. Students have access to the high line and the skyline. So they may not know their grade, which is a whole nother conversation to talk about. But they will be able to look in and say, my skyline is going up. I am learning. This is what I next need to learn.
Was this piloted at all 6th and 8th through 8th graders in our district?
Across the district this year, we've done it. We were piloting it at certain schools the last couple years.
Okay, because
This year we moved it district-wide.
because I was pretty amazed because I have a 7th grader this last year, and her MAP score in math went up by like a lot more than we expected, and it was like
During a pandemic.
yeah, and I was expecting it to be flat or maybe go. I was worried about that, and so
Right.
yeah.
So we're pretty excited. I can't prove it. It's not statistically
Right.
something, but
I mean, yeah, that would be a good explanation.
right.
I was
You're
actually
well on.
going to ask about the reliability of those numbers during a pandemic when we can't monitor the kids as closely as we have been able to in the classroom. And do we know that it's the children's work and not a sibling's work?
We do on this one, because I measured it against the last in-person at school test that we took versus the in-person testing we did this year.
Okay.
So those were my two comparison points, because you're right. We didn't have reliable data necessarily the rest of the time.
So this is something that's going to come to the next board meeting. It's expensive, but it's the money that have been given to us, manna from heaven, from the feds and the state is what they want us to do is find out where the kids are at, fix any problems, and move it forward. And again, emphasize this is a long-term project. It took us 6-7 years to get here to have it functional, and now we're going to pay to participate in taking it to the next level and reap the rewards both for our kids and actually for the district as well.
And another Golden Bell Award, I am quite sure, at a minimum.
Just start piling them in. We got a list.
If I understood you correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, because that's often the case, the real-time data is mostly from interactive stuff the kids are doing on their Chromebooks that the computer knows he got that answer right, got that answer wrong, and so on and so forth. So it's updating constantly.
Yeah, it captures everything that they are essentially doing in terms, whether it's a learning lesson or it is a test or a platform, an open resource that they practiced on. It's capturing all of that data and also measuring their grit, their perseverance, all of those things.
Is it kind of like, I mean, the Facebook algorithm where you're like thinking about buying a new car at the Lexus dealer, and then all of a sudden you see the ad for the Lexus? I mean, is that kind of kind of similar type thing where it just kind of knows how it figures you out as an individual? It kind of figures.
I would say to some extent that it is true as well, because it also identifies this is a resource that has been working for you and it has another lesson for you on this next thing you need to learn. So it suggests that resource for you in your journey so that you're not, traveling to Alaska via New Mexico,
Yeah.
But I bought Pram. I haven't given it to him because of the pandemic. Gardner's Intelligences, and so there's 7. Now there's some people say there's 9, 7 different ways people learn. And so in a perfect world, imagine like I don't know if you guys knew this, but I have a lot of energy and I move around a lot. So
Really?
and I'm auditory and all this. And so if it knows that and it can funnel the teacher to something that helps me, but then you take someone like Heather who's very quiet and demure, doesn't like to talk, she's not hyper competitive or anything like that, and she gets same topic, same standard, but there's something direct. That's the fantasy of where it could go, but on the opposite side of, you need to buy another polo shirt.
Yeah.
So will the tool also take into consideration the assessment scores that they receive from, each test?
I'm sorry, will it take into consideration the what?
The grade or the scores that they receive from each unit test?
Grades will be one source of data.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I have taken up most of your life this week. I'm feeling guilty that it's 4:30. So we wanted this as a teaser. There's a video. We'll show it to you. It's kind of cute. We didn't put it together. The professionals did. We're professionals, but we're not professional videographers. and we wanted you to have an opportunity in this, having been in the laboratory of the curriculum team and all the stuff we do, this is a new thing we're going to be bringing forward. So that was our little presentation to wet the whistle, I guess that's.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I only have 15 more pages of things to review with you. No, I'm joking. Mr. President, that is our team's presentation today.
Thank you. And now I will begin my 45-minute. I will happily entertain a motion.
I will happily move to adjourn.
I second.
On a motion by Trustee Olson and seconded by Trustee Boulay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are now adjourned.